Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
I'd like to retire, well, jokingly when I'm 25, but I think it'd be nice if I could retire by the time I'm 60. That'd be a more reasonable goal, I think.
I am hoping for 55. I don't know if it's realistic, though.
55, maybe.
By 60 at least.
Probably around 60.
58.
Well, I'd want to retire at 32.
There's a bunch of people who aren't thinking about retirement.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, nationally recognized retirement specialist and six-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
In 2002, shortly after I began working on the creation of the only process in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, something I trademarked and use every day in our practice called the Worry-Free Retirement, I began thinking about all the young people and even baby boomers, such as myself, who knew nothing about Granddad and his generation of retirees and how they made staying home from work look so easy. Armed with the motivation to prove why retirement for young people and baby boomers would not resemble anything like that of my granddad's, in 2007, my production company proceeded to direct and create this documentary called Say Goodbye to Granddad's Retirement. Now, as we fast forward to the recording of this show on August 1st, 2023, I feel as though this documentary has been a slight fulfillment of prophecy expressed within it. So what did this documentary in the past 16 or so years of working in the financial trenches since its release teach me as a financial advisor on how best to help savers be worry-free in retirement, just like Granddad? Well, we're getting ready to find out. Well, welcome folks to the Worry-Free Retirement. And yes, I am that little man in the sweater vest retirement planning specialist and fiduciary, Tony Walker, and before we show you how to take a glass half full approach to bidding farewell to Granddad's retirement, wait a minute, I'm looking around here. Where's Aaron, America's favorite financial sidekick? Derek?
He got summoned for jury duty, boss.
Oh, well, anyway, Derek, thanks for showing up.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, as you know, it was for my court case, but one of us had to be here, so we flipped a coin.
Oh, whatever. All right, let us step back a second and look at what my granddad's retirement looked like in 1978 following 43 years with the same phone company, where he climbed telephone poles, moved over into the engineering office waiting for his coffee break, and then in 1978 making his front porch his permanent retirement retreat, where he never worried about money from that point forward. How did he and that generation of savers pull it off? Well, first, that generation of retirees had guaranteed lifetime income they could never run out from two sources. First, the company provided pension plan and dependable Social Security. Second thing they had was usually health insurance that was completely paid for by their employer. And finally, bank interest rates that could fetch as high as 18%. That's right, in 1981, you could get a bank CD for 18%. No wonder they never invested in the stock market. So with all those items no longer on the table for today's retirees, is it any wonder that today much of what this documentary I produced years ago, Say Goodbye to Granddad's Retirement, prophesied about things that now look like turning out to be true? Which is why today I'm going to show you why relying on the stock market to create a lifetime income you can never outlive is really dangerous territory for savers, and how you can create your own brand of a worry-free retirement just like Granddad. So stay tuned. I'm Tony Walker. You're watching the Worry-Free Retirement. We'll be right back. With the uncertainty of the stock market, our nation's debt spiraling out of control, and inflation running rampant, now may be the best time to consider moving your 401k to safer territory. My name is Tony Walker, and for over 38 years I've made it my life's mission to help savers worry less about money, and I want to help you too. To speak with me at no cost or obligation, why don't you log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or simply call the toll-free number on your screen.
Corporate companies have sometimes maybe cracked the whip too quickly and said, okay, we will reduce the workforces, we'll retire these people early, and we'll make way for a few people that we can hire at a lower wage. I think they ought to go back and reassess the value of that someday. Some economist who's smarter than all of us ought to go back and say, did they get a bargain in making that deal?
Welcome back, folks, to the Worry-Free Retirement, and I wanted to share with you this interesting survey and article from Investment News entitled, Our Glass is Half Empty, Why Your Clients Are Worried. Conducted by one of the biggest firms on Wall Street, BlackRock, their findings report a truly glass half empty picture for the future of retirees as more and more are pessimistic about their future. However, thanks to the crystal ball I keep in my office, I predicted back in 2007 that articles like this would reveal the worries of savers who should have listened to me when I produced the documentary Say Goodbye to Granddad's Retirement and How Mailbox Money for Life was the key to not running out of money. We call it the glass half full approach. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some of the numbers in this article. And the first thing is, yes, the pessimism is on the rise. In fact, according to the report, the number of U.S. retirement savers who feel they are off track has more than doubled since 2021, reaching 24%. Conversely, those who feel on track have actually dropped by 13 percentage points from their peak in 2021. The impact of economic conditions is pushing nearly 30% of all retirement savers to consider, guess what, extending their working lives. And with 2022's poor performance in both the equity and bond markets, combined with higher interest rates, many individuals are now uncertain about where to invest their savings. And here is what I knew would happen. Take note of this study, and where the study shows that 90% of those surveyed, the employees are now interested in allocating at least a portion of their savings to products providing guaranteed income, a notable increase from 76% 2 years ago. So here's where we need to talk about having a written game plan that includes what we call a diversified approach to retirement, something I trademarked called the Worry-Free Split IRA concept. Let's take a look at this and see how we at Tony Walker are doing one of two things all the time. We're either managing the liquidity, that would be your Charles Schwab bucket we set up, or managing the guarantees, which is the annuity or potentially annuity bucket. So I'm going to make a couple of comments here. This is really important. So here's the thing. If you are retired or retiring soon, maybe you got an old 401k with a previous employer, maybe you've just sold some property or received an inheritance, or you're just wanting to roll over your 401k or transfer that from a broker who's not really giving you a retirement game plan to somebody like us at Tony Walker Financial. This is normally, not all the time, this is normally what we do. So if we have a large sum of money coming in, generally we have to have $50,000 minimum to even do this, so keep that in mind. But what we will do is split this. So if you have more than $50,000, that would either go in Schwab or, depending on other liquidity, the annuity. But let's say you've got more than $50,000. Let's say you've got a $500,000 401k, or maybe a $500,000 you just inherited. Let's take the 401k, for instance. What we're going to do, the entire 401k first goes into the Charles Schwab bucket. And from there, we decide how much money we're going to leave for liquidity, whether we're going to choose from one of our 3 investment strategies, which could be very conservative, all the way to taking some risk if you'd like to do that and trying to get some growth. The other bucket is the protection bucket. That's where we use our expertise in the world of annuities to select the annuity or sometimes multiple annuities that fit within the original game plan. So folks, here's the problem. Many of you are rushing out and throwing your money in various buckets with no game plan. So my question is, if this is about retirement planning, how in the world are you going to know which monies to spend, what the taxes are going to be, how much the fees are going to erode their wealth? You can't do that. You have to have the written game plan first. Then, through the experience of a retirement planning firm such as Tony Walker Financial, we can help determine how much goes in which of these buckets. So keep that in mind before you rush out and just throw your money in one of the buckets. In fact, I would encourage you, if you're there right now, maybe you're thinking about retiring, you're a little disappointed in the results of your current brokerage firm, you're wanting a second opinion, just do this right now. Just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, TonyWalkerFinancial.com. You're going to hit on that Let's Get Started button, or you can simply call the number on your screen. We'll be happy to set up something we call the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. Okay, when we come back, this is really interesting. Our Tony in the Trenches deals with the fact that we at Tony Walker Financial make very, very conservative assumptions for future returns on your money. Yes, even money we might have in the stock market. And while this rule of thumb you keep hearing of an average rate of return of 10% on your money is a disaster when you get into retirement. I'm Tony Walker. Stay tuned. You're watching the Worry-Free Retirement. We'll be right back.
No, I'm not saving for retirement right now. I'm just saving to pay my rent this month. But after I get a real job, then yeah, I'll start saving for retirement.
Not yet, but I guess I will once I get a serious job.
Not really. I barely save for next week.
I'm kind of living paycheck to paycheck because I'm in school. Right now I'm saving for my kids' college, so I'm just kind of putting myself on the back burner.
Since I'm in college, I'm just building up nothing but debt right now.
Have you recently retired, been laid off, or offered a pension buyout? Has the company you work for moved, been acquired, or closed its doors forever? And finally, do you have a 401k with a previous employer you'd like to move to safer territory? Then take advantage of this opportunity to move your 401k or lump sum pension to Tony Walker Financial. Let's meet in person to discuss your retirement options. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to schedule your free, no obligation appointment. Let us help you today.
I began thinking about my retirement at an early age. I'd say probably around 21 or 22.
I started thinking about my retirement about the time I first started teaching in college, which would have been when I was about 26.
Our Tony in the Trenches comes to us from Rick in Louisville, who, when presented with our game plan recently, asked the following question. Tony, why are you using a 3% assumed rate of return for your Charles Schwab platform when the stock market has averaged around 10%? And guess what? Rick is correct. Over the long term, the stock market has averaged 10%. So what exactly is he referring to? Well, this is our game plan. This is one of the pages I've pulled apart from the game plan. And notice this, in this example, we put $150,000 of this client's money in the Charles Schwab bucket that we talked about in the last segment. Notice we're only assuming a 3% growth. The software, for various reasons, we decided to pull out money for that period of time, then stop. And notice how it continues to grow. So obviously that's only 3%, but why do we do that? You're getting ready to see that in just a second. So let's go to what Rick's talking about. This is according to Schiller. This is accurate, okay? If you go back, 10.64% is what the S&P has averaged when you include dividends since 1971. Again, that's accurate. But there's a problem with all of this. And this is the rub I have when you hear people on the radio or you go on the internet and everybody's talking about the stock market making 10% and how it's easy to do and everybody trying to predict the future and bad-mouthing safe investments such as annuities. Here's the problem. This right here. So what happens is when we're getting into retirement planning, it's one thing if you've invested 30 years ago and didn't need to touch it. Yeah, let the market ride if you don't need the money. over the long term, if past is prologue, you're going to make quite a bit of money. But that's not how retirement planning works. In fact, let's do this. Zoom in on 1929 to 1932, Derek. Look at that. For 679 days, the stock market was down, losing 86%. You got to imagine you're retired and need this money. Let's pick another period of time. Look at that. We've talked about this before. Between January 2000 and October 2002, 685 days of a down stock market, resulting in huge losses. And who can forget between 2007 and 2009, 355 days of down market, meaning you would have lost about 50% of everything you had. And you might be saying, Tony, but what does this have to do about retirement planning? Folks, let's go to the next graphic and see the effects of what happened during 2007 and 2008 when you need to take money out. Again, long term, it's not going to affect your wallet if this thing is bouncing all over creation. What's going to affect your wallet is when you start taking money out during these down markets. So let's imagine we go back to 2005 and you retire. You're 60 years of age, you've got $300,000 in your 401k, and you need $20,000 a year from now on. Fair enough. In 2005, the S&P went up about 5%. You took your $20,000 out, you were down to about $293,000. You're not losing much sleep over that. You do the same thing the next year, the market goes up almost 16%. You're actually way above where you started. This is looking great. The next year, you take out another 20, the market's up, you're still ahead of $300,000, all is well in Mudville. But then, here comes 2008. The market drops that year alone 37%. You still need money to live on. Folks, this is where retirement planning comes in. You can't be assuming these 10% returns. You take your 20 out, look at that. After 4 years in retirement, tell me if this is worry-free living. Your account is now down to $184,000. So moral to the story, when we're doing income planning, we are going to assume very, very low rates of assumptions. And if you're working with an advisor that is assuming 7 or 8, 9% and you're in retirement, all I could say is let the buyer beware. Okay, in our remaining time, I thought I would do something kind of interesting because as you see all these different returns in the market, let's go back and assume, since we're trying to help some young folks along the way, incidentally, most of our clients are not younger, I would say in their 30s and 40s. Our average age is between 56 and 80. That's our clientele. So in kind of closing here, if somebody's watching this show, or maybe you've got a child that's in their 30s or 40s or whatever, and you say, well, Tony, long term, they've got a 401k. Shouldn't they be in the market? If they're okay with the risk, I would say actually yes. And it's because of something called dollar cost averaging, okay? And what that means is the following. Let's imagine, we'll start here, let's imagine over time the stock market is doing this, which is this really is how it kind of goes. In fact, Aaron, why don't we do this? Put up full screen that graphic that we just showed earlier. I mean, look at that thing bouncing all over the place. I mean, there's no way anybody can time the market or know. But in this case, what happens is, let's say these represents months of the year over time, or however you want to look at it. So we have all these. I'm going to use red for effect here. I know Derek says red doesn't show up too good, but so what happens is with a 401k plan, all right, this is where a 401k plan can be very helpful. You're putting in at different points. You're buying shares, you're buying them high, you're buying them low, but you're not trying to time the market. In other words, you're not saying, well, I think the market's down, I'll dump all my money in, and then the market crashes even more. You're buying incrementally into the market. And what happens is long term, you may not make as much as the guy that knows how to time the market, but long term, you're going to have a nice, even average rate of return. Probably not going to be 10%, but as you're buying in these different share prices, over the long term, you're taking a lot of the risk out of the equation. So, and before we close out this segment, so my suggestion is, if you're on the younger side, if you're still contributing to a 401k, if you feel like you do need to have some risk involved, dollar cost averaging is going to help. Now, on the other hand, if you have what I call some old money in there and you're still contributing, if your 401k custodian will allow it, maybe take the old money, that's the big pot of money, and put that in a more conservative structure. The new money, that's your contributions, put that towards the S&P 500 and let it do its thing over time. I hope that helps. Okay, we got some really good stuff coming up. The Bible talks about prophecy, and it even talks about a prophet, and a prophet that's not really welcome in his own hometown. Does this really happen a lot, and maybe even happen to you? Got to get me a cup of coffee for this. You're watching the Worry Free Retirement. I'll be right back.
With the management position, I'm not particularly pumped about it, but that's okay. It's a good job, has good benefits, it has everything that I want in a job, except for I don't really feel like I'm using my degree, which is overwhelmingly discouraging. But what are you gonna do? It's a job. It's a good job. I'm definitely gonna take this job if they offer it because no one else seems to be very interested in me. And the only reason I'm being offered this job is because I have been with the company for 3 years, which is good. I put in my time and I deserve what I'm getting, definitely. But I do wish there were more opportunities.
Did you know that you can watch the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money anytime you want? The show's called The WorryFree Retirement. It's hosted by Tony Walker, and it's available on YouTube. All you got to do is go to youtube.com and right there in the search bar, type in Tony Walker Financial, and you'll see Tony's smiling face. Click on that and you're going to find all types of video content. Again, that's youtube.com, Tony Walker Financial.
Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement with the money missionary himself, Tony Walker.
I remember getting into this business back in 1984, and an insurance company representative who would periodically drive from Cincinnati down to our offices in Bowling Green, Kentucky to assist our firm in helping clients plan for the future, setting up appointments for this gentleman to meet with our clients, and we would tell them prior to the meeting that we had an expert from Cincinnati to discuss their plans for the future. You know the definition of an expert, don't you? Anyone who travels more than 50 miles and carries a briefcase. In fact, funny thing about being dubbed a prophet is that in most cases, the less someone knows about you or where you came from, the more likely they are to put you on a pedestal and believe whatever you tell them. For proof of that statement, just check out the internet for as many self-proclaimed financial prophets and predictors of the future as one can stand. Webster's defines a prophet as one who utters divinely inspired revelations, one gifted with more than ordinary spiritual and moral insight, or one who foretells future events, or what I might just say is a good predictor. And while I would certainly not consider myself a prophet, I do feel that many of the concerns shared in my 2007 documentary have come true as evidence of studies and articles such as the one we covered earlier in the show. Speaking of feeling like a prophet and being put on a pedestal, in years past and on many occasions, large insurance companies have had me address their agents and advisors from all over the country to share my insights on many things, including where I thought the times of the industry might be heading. But then, upon my return home, it was business as usual, where friendly local competitors were assumed since I was local, I didn't know what I was talking about. You know, Jesus had a similar problem of the locals not taking him serious as well. In fact, during one episode of Jesus' teaching, instead of the onlookers being impressed with what he was saying about the things of God, they focused on who he was and where he lived. In other words, since he didn't travel more than 50 miles and carry a briefcase, he was no expert to those who knew him. But funny how Jesus responded to their thoughts about him. He basically said a prophet is not without honor except, you guessed it, in his hometown. And maybe that's you right now. For whatever reason, the people closest to you seem to be the ones who are the least impressed with you and with all the work you've put in for others and or your attitudes and belief about the future. Well, if that's you, and in this case, let me remind you that the greatest and most powerful human being ever to walk the face of the earth, Jesus Christ, did not worry about his self-worth being tied to what others thought or said about him. Maybe, just maybe, we should instead be more concerned with the one who is the ultimate judge of who we are and what we have accomplished, and that is God himself, who, assuming by faith you are confident in one day meeting him face to face, will have this to say about all we've done here on earth. Well done, thy good and faithful servant. Well done. And that's some really good news you and I can take to the bank. Amen? Well, speaking of taking some news to the bank, I've got something to share with you. What about this good news? The good news that someone is here to encourage you about your money and acknowledge how hard you've worked to save it. And my question is, do you have a financial advisor in your corner who truly cares more about you than they do your money? Are they working hard to make sure that you understand your money? Or are they treating you like a commodity? Well, if that's you, if you don't have someone you feel you can trust who has the know-how and experience to tackle this thing called retirement, let's see if we can help. My name is Tony Walker, and for nearly 40 years, I've made it my life's mission to help savers worry less about money in retirement, and I want to see if I can help you too. And man, have we made this easy to get started. It's called the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. And to talk to me in person, that's right, the owner of the company, just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com. You're going to click on that little Let's Get Started, or if you like, you can call the number on your screen. Well, in closing today, I wanted to leave with you the very end of the Say Goodbye to Granddad's Retirement video. It's a powerful moment where the late, great Jim Britt from Bowling Green, Kentucky summarizes life and a young lady that we have been tracking throughout this video and her decision to either stay at work in a retail job or go back to school. A powerful moment here. We hope you enjoy. And in the meantime, you make it a good day and be worry-free. Derek, let her roll. I saw a cup in there that says, follow your dreams. How do you feel about that statement?
Depends what your dreams are.
Do you have any dreams?
Not anymore.
It's kind of like a story that I heard about a road up in Vermont that was unpaved, and there was a sign on the side of the road that said, "Choose your ruts carefully, you'll be in them for the next 20 miles." What you decide today is going to influence what happens tomorrow.
You may live 20, 30, 40 years. What are you going to do with it? And that's the hard part for people in their 20s to think about. That's hard for people in their 40s to think about.
There are people who view success as the ultimate in life. I remember the story of a couple of fellas that were standing on a corner and a hearse came by, and they knew who it was who had died, and the fella said, I wonder how much he left. And his friend said he left every bit of it.